Hey everyone, good afternoon. Uh, Welcome you all for the session today. Meghnad, I hope my voice is okay. Just give me a thumbs up if that's the case.
Yeah, Sheetal, we can hear you fine.
Perfect. So what we will do on the session today is just give a brief intro of Mind, and then we'll jump in into the exciting topic for this webinar, which is on the upgrades within Forecast Pro and how we can further leverage Forecast Pro for effective collaboration. Now, to get started with, we have the webinar topic, which is what's new in V8, maximizing collaboration efficiency with Forecast Pro. In fact, after roughly about a year and a half, Forecast Pro has come up with a major upgrade, and this is a very, it's basically quite a cool feature that we saw specifically on collaboration, which Meghnad will be showcasing today. Just to talk about who I am and who we are. So I am Sheetal. I manage the operation side of things in Anamind. I also have Meghnad, who's senior planning analyst. Uh, let's dive into who we are as Anamind. And as Anamind, we help companies build robust supply chain planning capability. We have worked with leading brands across different industry. Our solutions are implemented there and being used there. We have been very recently recognized by Economic Times Edge as one of the promising brands of 2023. That was quite a big achievement for us. And we have also been recognized by several other um, such platforms. To talk about within Anamind's portfolio of things, how do we help companies? We have solution services catering to these different areas, solutions with respect to demand planning, stock replenishment planning, MRP procurement, production planning, scheduling, uh, goes up till SNOP collaboration, but we do not just stay till there, right? We have options of integrating, say, financial information, and we have solutions which are at IBP level as well. So that way, it's a complete end-to-end solution that we offer within business planning. Supply chain is one of the core area. In terms of our offering is there with respect to technology, which is one of the software that we will be showcasing today, in fact, on the call, which is Forecast Pro. That's one of the solution that we offer as a technology for the offerings within supply chain. We also offer services where we have a unique planning as a service offering that focuses on process. Where we basically the experts in my team would work very closely with the customer to generate more accurate forecasts, optimize algorithm. Also, we offer our modeling expertise in solution like SAP IBP, Agility, QAD, Streamline, Forecast Pro, and then we also create business planning reports or via the BI platforms that are available, primarily the Power BI. We do cater to the intelligence segment as well via in our offering. And then furthermore, we have the training where we offer classroom sessions or online sessions for various training or basically various training needs specifically catering to the quantitative and the process best practices. So that's something that we cover. Just to give a glimpse of the different offerings that we have, different solutions that we have, the use cases. I'll not get into the details of it, but it's pretty much self-explanatory that one is technology, then we also offer services, then the BI and the training, and at the bottom, as you can see, we have different solutions as well in place. Planning as a service is a best of both worlds where we offer experts as well as solutions which work in which work together so that you can leverage the best out of the application, yet have the time for analysis, which the system churns out and make meaningful insights and decisions out of it. So it's a very good process where we offer trained resource on top of the solution so that the results are maximized. Again, some of the impacts that we have observed across different industries after using the solution, where there was an increase in forecast accuracy. In certain cases, we have seen an increase in forecast accuracy straight away by 10%, which we can understand how, what impact it would have down the supply chain. So that's pretty significant. Now, this is where Meghnad would come and give us an overview of this webinar, and I'll take a pause here and I'll stop sharing my screen and give it to Meghnad. Over to you, Meghnad.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thanks for the brief introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. So, as Sheetal has already mentioned in the introduction, the software that we'll be taking a look at today is Forecast Pro. So, let me begin by first showing the composition of our user base within Forecast Pro. So, it is quite significant that almost more than 70% of our user base uses a multi-user environment within Forecast Pro, which is basically a collaborative operation. And this is important to note because most of the times in the planning sector, we need inputs from different personnel, and we need to know how to utilize those feedbacks and use them in a more optimized way or more effectively. And that is how we'll be using the project collaboration feature, which is the new feature which is there in Forecast Pro V8. Now, let me start off by showing the Forecast Pro evolution and the current processes in Forecast Pro and how we came to project collaboration. So I'll start off with a single project, which is basically the single user project, which has its own pros and cons. So in single project, the setup is quite simple and there's only one user who's taking care of all the projects. And if there is any feedback that is to be incorporated in this particular project, the user has to do it manually. Now, this is how Forecast Pro had started when it did not have those many features when it came to collaboration. This single project setup also had its own disadvantages, one of them being taking a lot of time when the projects were too long, and also it being accessible only by one user at a time. So multiple users could not open a single project at once. Now, another thing that most of our Forecast Pro users use is the Excel-based collaboration. Now, let me just quickly jump into an example where we use Excel collaboration. And most of the Forecast Pro users must be familiar with this option that we had added, which is Excel collaboration. And you come here, you create new Excel collaboration files, and then once you create them, it will sort of give you a template or Excel template like this, where the user or the collaborator would be able to go in and make changes to any of the forecast numbers, to any of the line items that he wants. So one disadvantage this Excel collaboration feature clears out, which was there in the single project, is that multiple users can work on this Excel file, make changes to this file, make changes to the forecast, save the file, and then send it back to the main owner of the single project, where he would be able to just, with a click of a button, as you can see over here, import the file back in, where all the overrides which were made in this particular Excel file would be loaded. Right. Again, this Excel collaboration feature has its own advantages. You would be able to see the graph, the forecast versions. If you have any external data that you uploaded into your project, you would be able to see those. But this as well had its own disadvantages. Like the user would not be able to see or get the complete functionality of all the Forecast Pro features. He would not be able to make changes to the statistical forecasting models. And by default, he would be able to work using only one unit of measure, which is the default units that you're loading into Forecast Pro. So you cannot view this data in terms of other units of measures. Like if you want to look at this particular quantity sold data in terms of value, you would not be able to do that using Excel collaboration. Now, all those have now been taken care of in the multi-project collaboration feature, which is the new and the latest feature which has been added in Forecast Pro version 8. Now, using this project collaboration feature, the users will now be able to adjust the statistical forecast models, and also they will be able to work simultaneously, which is the owner of the main single project would now be able to break the project into multiple smaller projects and then send it to the collaborators. Now, if the collaborator has the collaborator licenses, they would be able to open the Forecast Pro software, just like how the owner of the parent project opens it, and they would be able to work in those projects, make changes to the overrides. They would have access to the full hierarchy, which was not the case in the Excel collaboration, and they would be able to work in multiple units of measure, which was again not possible in the Excel collaboration. Now, apart from these features, they would also be able to view the external data fields if they're loading any open orders, if they're loading any customer forecasts. All those would be visible in the project collaboration child projects itself, which was earlier not possible in the Excel collaboration. Now, coming to the role of collaboration and what are the current processes that typically happens when you're using Forecast Pro. The user would first load in the data in Forecast Pro. Once the data is loaded, we would then generate the statistical forecast and make any adjustments to the forecasting models if necessary. Once the adjustments to the forecasting models are made, you would then make changes or make overrides to any of the forecasts that you would want. So this is where the collaboration actually happens. Once all the overrides are made, the planner would then export the final forecast out of Forecast Pro after a final consensus review. So typically, the collaboration process generally occurs in these two steps, which is generating the statistical forecast and then making the adjustments or making the overrides in your Forecast Pro projects. Now, coming to generating the statistical forecast, we need to keep in mind that who will be responsible for statistical forecasting. It's not always the case that whoever is there in your collaborative process would have the access to change the statistical forecasting models because that again depends on the makeup of how your organization is set up. Sometimes you would just want to get the feedback of the salesperson regarding what the forecast should be rather than him or her going and changing the statistical forecasting model. So this is one point that we should take care of while managing the collaboration process. And we should also take care of what should be done in the parent project and what should be done in the child project. Most of the time, all these statistical forecast model changes happen in the parent projects. But with this new feature of project collaboration, we also have the option to change the statistical forecasting models within the child projects itself. And then coming to the uh, adjustments, which is uh, having overrides, we should keep in mind whether we want to have these overrides in the parent project or we want to have the overrides in the child project because that again matters. Now, let me jump into the software where we would take a look at a couple of examples on how the project collaboration feature can be used. So for this particular example, we have loaded one of our example data sets, which is auto parts. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Forecast Pro, this is how the input file or the base file which we load into Forecast Pro looks like. Here, the first five or the first five columns, these contribute to the hierarchy, which you can see in the Forecast Pro Navigator. So in the first column, we have the totals under which you would be able to see the region. So in this particular example, we have selected one region, which is Chicago North. And we have different categories. And then once the categories are defined under the categories, we have the SKUs. So again, the SKUs are further bifurcated by customers, under which we have different customers. Once this file is loaded into Forecast Pro, this is how it looks like. So here I would be able to expand the navigator. Under total, I would have the location, and then under location, I have categories. And then under each category, I would have the SKU, and then under each SKUs, I would have different customers. So how this basically works is I would now be able to uh, split this entire project, which is now known as a parent project, into multiple child projects. So for this, I'll just open the Forecast Pro project collaboration feature over here. And then in the first example, I would like to split the parent project into child projects based on the category. So this is how the project collaboration window will look like if you're opening it for the first time, and there'll be nothing to show in this particular view. So you can create a new child project by clicking on this create child button, which will then take you to the create dialog box. Now here there are a few things that we have to keep in mind. The first being whether or not to enable forecasting in the child project for your collaborators to use this particular feature. So for this example, we will enable forecasting in the child project. And then once that is done, we'll then have to define at which level we want to split the particular parent project. So in this case, I will split it by category, and then I would split all the projects into different projects. So I'll use the multiple project file where I'll be able to then select which are the categories for which I want to create separate child projects. So we can do this by selecting all the 4 child projects. Another thing that we have to keep in mind is where these child projects would be exported to, which you can define over here. So this typically is the shared space where your collaborator will have the access to the child projects. So basically like uh, Dropbox or Google Drive. And once you have selected the path to where the child projects will be exported, you can go ahead and create the child projects. Now, once the child projects are created, you will be able to see them in the project collaboration dialog, which I'll be showing now. So now this particular view will be filled by all the child projects that you would have created, along with the status of when it was created, and if you have enabled forecasting in the child projects or if you have disabled it. So let me just take an example by opening one of the child projects which I've split. So you can notice over here that I have split it by category. So I have different projects for different categories now. So I have a project for mufflers, I have a project for rims, I have a project for seats, and I have a separate child project for windows. So you can just open any one of these in Forecast Pro again. Now comparing this with the Excel collaboration feature, we do not get any of these functionalities in the Excel collaboration. But in the project collaboration, I'm now able to use entire features of Forecast Pro just for this particular child project. So my collaborator has the option to access the entire hierarchy if he is given access to it, and then go down to any of these queues which belongs to his particular category, which is mufflers in this case. You'd also notice that only mufflers is visible in this particular child project and the other categories are excluded because we would want to give this child project to only the salesperson who would be handling the mufflers forecasting. So in that case, he can take a look at what is a statistical forecast that is coming in from the parent project for this mufflers. And then he can go down or drill down further to the SKU level and then again to the customer level. And then he also has the option to make overrides at any of these levels. So what the collaborator or the child project owner can also do using the project collaboration feature, apart from making overrides in the particular override grid, is he can go to the forecasting tab and he can make changes to the forecasting models, right? So suppose if he thinks that an exponential smoothing model would be a much better forecasting model for this particular item, then he can go ahead and select the exponential smoothing model, which would then change the forecast or the baseline statistical forecast, which is coming from the parent project. Right. So he has the option to change forecasts for each and every item which is there in his particular child project. And also he can make overrides in the override grid. So suppose here, if he wants to change the statistical forecast, say by 100 units, so I can just use this increment feature and then make the forecast to 103, then commit this override. And suppose if I also want to mark a comment saying why I've increased this, maybe because we are running a promo, so I can note down that comment and commit to this override. Now, once the collaborator has made changes to all the items that is present in his child project, he can go ahead and save this and then send it back to the owner of the parent project. Now, how that would look like is if I just click on this, wait for it to refresh, open the project collaboration feature again, you now see the status of the child project being changed to modified externally. So this indicates that the owner of the child project or your collaborator has made his changes in the project. He has made the overrides or he has made the changes to the statistical forecasting models. And now those overrides are now ready to be brought back into the parent project. How that can be done is just by simply clicking on this child project and then clicking on the import button. Now, what you would notice is once I've clicked on the import button, the icons on my parent project has changed, indicating that I now have brought in the overrides from my child project. So you can see the same overrides and the same comments being reflected in my parent project, where I'm now seeing, okay, what was the override that was made by my collaborator, and what is the reason behind that override, and what is the comment that he has put. So you would also notice that there are two additional rows in this parent project, which is the child baseline forecast and the child project final override. So the child baseline forecast usually comes up when you're making changes to any statistical forecasting models within the child project. So once you make the changes to the statistical forecasting models in the child project, the child baseline would also change accordingly. And similarly, if any of your other collaborators have made changes to their respective child projects, you can see the status of uh, those individual child projects in the project collaboration window, and you can choose to import all of them at once. Now, coming to a second example where we will be using the filter file to see how the project collaboration feature works when you're actually having different filters in your main project. So before I move on to the filter example, let's first take a look at how the filter file is in the actual Forecast Pro. Now you can see the similarities between the historical data file and the filter file. We again have the same 5 level hierarchy up till my customer, and then each of my customer is assigned to a salesperson. And we also have the capability in Forecast Pro to split the projects by certain filters that we give. So in this case, I would have the option not only to split my projects based on the category, I would have the option to split my projects based on the salesperson as well. So let me open that particular project where we have loaded the filter file. So as you can see, this is similar to the project where we have taken the child projects by category, and you can see the same options here as well. Now in this example, I will be using the project collaboration feature and then creating it to split my child projects based on the salesperson, which now is a filter attribute. Now all I have to do is come to the selected item feature over here and then click on filtered multiple projects, and I would be able to select the salesperson attribute, and then I can create different child projects based on the different salesperson that I have assigned to each of my customers. So once I have created all my child projects based on the salesperson, I would then be able to see how it would look like. So in this particular example, you can see that the forecasting has been disabled for all the child projects which is created, because I would only want to incorporate the overrides which they have made in the override grid. and I would not want them to make changes to the statistical forecasting models. Now, in this case, if I just click on any one of these child projects, for example, let's take Jennifer, and then open it in Forecast Pro again, you can see it's similar to how we had seen in the other example, but there are these different log icons for each of the item code. Now, this would typically appear because we are just taking a subset of data rather than the entire data set. So all the subtotals that you're seeing over here does not actually represent the actual totals for this particular item because we are taking the item only managed by that particular salesperson, which in this case is Jennifer. So we would not be able to make any changes or any overrides to the higher levels in this particular project, which in fact was not the case in the previous example where I was able to make changes to the category level and also the region level. But in this case, I am only able to make overrides at the last level, which is my customer level, as I've filtered it out based on the salesperson. Another thing that you can notice in this particular example is when I go to the forecasting tab, the all the features which are present in the forecasting tab are grayed out because I've not given access for my collaborator to make any changes to the statistical forecasting models in this particular child project. Apart from that, all the functionalities remain same. The collaborator would have access to the override grid where he'll be able to make changes to all the forecasts. Suppose he has manually made the forecast 20 for this particular period, he'll then be able to go ahead and give a comment saying this is the input from the customer. Now, once he has made this, he can go ahead and commit. And then once the project is saved, he can then send this particular child project back to the owner of the parent project. And then all the uh, main forecaster has to do is just update this child project. Other functionality or features that you also have in the child projects is you have the option to add calculated rows, which you can do in your parent project. And then you can perform certain calculations in the calculated rows. And then also add in different external data fields which you would not have done or not have been able to done in the Excel collaboration feature. So in this case, I can load in the data of my open orders, which would be present in the parent project. I would also be able to load in my conversion factor and then take a look at them. So I can work in this project in different units of measure. I can not only work in the normal default units of measure, I can also see what would be my converted forecast when I convert it to value. And then based on that, I can take decisions to make changes to it and save the project and then send it back to the forecaster who's handling the parent project. So once all these changes have been done, all you have to do is just close this file and I'll be back to the parent project where it will refresh and then it will show me that this particular file has been modified externally. So I have to click on this, then click on import. Will then import any changes which I have made to the previous project along with the comment. That is, this is the input from the customer. Now, apart from the project collaboration feature in the version 8, other important features which we have released in this latest version is the ability to check for updates. Now, just clicking on this icon will check for software updates if there are any, and it will just give you a pop-up to download the latest version of Forecast Pro. We also have added a new feature, which is the license manager. Now, just clicking on this will take you to this particular dialog box where you will get all the details of your existing license and when is the subscription expiry date. You can also transfer this license now to other users in your organization or to another machine if you are switching to one. And then simply click on this. All you have to do is deactivate installation of the current Forecast Pro version and then copy the license information to the new tool or the new laptop or machine that you're using. So this has just made transferring licenses much easier without our involvement being there. Now, coming back to the presentation, let me summarize it quickly. So what we had done is we had created a parent project where the responsibility of the main forecaster who's owning the parent project is to update the historic data and then make any statistical forecast model changes and also to manage the collaborative or the collaboration process. Now, once the owner of the parent project or the main forecaster has followed these steps, he would then create separate child projects for all the collaborators that are present in his organization. And he will then distribute the child projects to each of these collaborators. Now, once each of these collaborators receive the respective child projects, their responsibility is to make overrides, as we have seen. And if they have given access to making the changes to the statistical forecasting models, they would do that and also make changes or make overrides in the child projects by reviewing the forecast accuracy report, as we have a full functionality of all the reports in the child project, which was not there in the Excel collaboration. Now, this feature would let them make changes or make overrides based on exception. And once each of the collaborator has made changes to their respective child projects, they would then save the files or save the projects and then send it back to the main forecaster or the owner of the parent project. Now, once the owner of the parent project receives all these child projects, his job then will be to consolidate these child projects and then do a final consensus review. And once everything is done, they would then export these final forecasts outside of Forecast Pro for their production or SNOP meetings. So that pretty much covers this new feature that is there in the project collaboration. Uh, Apart from other additional features that we saw, like license transfer and also checking for updates, which is part of P8. So if anyone has any questions regarding this new feature, I think we can take them now.
Yeah, Meghna, thanks for walking us through the session. It was pretty insightful, and we can clearly see the advantage these new features would have for the users. So just to summarize, possibly on the multi-collaboration, or the multi-project collaboration option that we have now, which was earlier missing in Focus Pro, would help, say, if there are multiple people who are responsible for certain set of forecast, but maybe the product categories are same, but then they are just responsible for their specific brands or their specific regions. So these child projects can be created and shared with the users so that they have access. They can modify the forecast, statistical forecast. They can make overrides wherever necessary, and ensure that they're managing their regions and their brands um, at their own level. Earlier, this option was not available. The users were allowed to create multiple different projects, and those were integrated using a super project. So this is a big relief. You don't have to now create multiple projects and maintain different files for each of those regions. One project can be created at the beginning and can be shared for better collaboration and usage. That's one important feature. The other feature that we can also see is ability to lock and manage the control, which user would see what information. So for a specific brand team, they would be able to only view the information which is relevant to them, which was somehow being controlled via Excel-based collaboration as well. But this gives a complete project-like feel, unlike the previous times where the users were only allowed to select a specific uh, just look at some Excel, just look at the forecast and possibly some external data in an Excel-like format. But here you have option to not only change the forecast, but also manage the items well. The other information which often maybe is looked upon, or maybe is not so looked upon, is the forecast value add. Now over here, as a planner, I would be able to look at what's the value add that I'm putting into the overall project. I don't have to go to the main project, then filter for my records. And this project, I have complete visibility of just viewing the information relevant for me. I can see if there is a value add, there is not a value add. And of course, the automatic update option, that's a big relief, which means that we no longer have to go to the IT guys to, do the installation again to the latest version. Over here, Forecast Pro would automatically find the update, and the update would happen in the background without needing the environment from the IT guys for admin, right? So that's a big relief. And of course, on the transfer as well, the project transfer as well, or the license transfer for that matter. It's pretty easy to do now, which is the user uh, can change and can transfer the license between themselves internally without having to wait for our resetting, for us to reset the license. So that's a pretty significant move from Forecast Pro in the overall setup with respect to project, with respect to reporting, viewing, accessing information, and also updating the data. We do have some question, Meghnad. I see a question which is, will the forecasting model change done in the child project be reflected in the main project?
I'm sorry, Sheetal, I didn't get that.
The first question from Parikshit is, will the forecasting model change done in child project be reflected in the main project? Maybe if you can show that portion once again.
Yes. Excellent question, Parikshit. So, as we have seen, we had enabled the forecasting for the child project in this particular example where we had split it by category. So once you have made any statistical forecasting or statistical forecast model change in the child project, and once you get that back into the parent project, you would see this additional row called the child baseline forecast being added to the parent project. And then you'll now be able to see which statistical forecast model was used, or if it was used to change the baseline forecast. So you would not see this particular child baseline forecast row in the other example where we had disabled the statistical forecasting for child projects.
Yeah. The other question that we have is with respect to the project collaboration itself. One second, it's opening up. It is, when we load the external data in the child project, will that not be visible in parent project?
Again, that is a good question, but remember, we are taking or making the child projects based on what data we are loading in the parent project. So I had already loaded the external data in the parent project over here. And then based on this, I had created the child project. Now you would see that in this particular layout of the parent project, I have not actually included the external data row like the open orders or the converted units row like the dollars in the parent project, but I still had the functionality to change my override grid layout in the child project. So I can still add those external data rows in my parent project, and then I can just save this. Now this now becomes the new layout to create any new child projects. But whatever changes that your child project has or your collaborator has made to his or her child project will stay in the child project because that is according or as per their convenience.
So apart from the changes in the forecast, the system will not bring in any other view from the child project into the main parent project, to answer your question. The other question is that we also see the add child button. So does this mean that the child from another project, another parent project can be incorporated into the current parent project?
Yes, good question again. So if you just go to the add child feature in Forecast Pro, it will automatically take me to a folder where I have saved multiple child projects, right? So if you have already created a child project uh, which was not created by you and which was already existing, which you are now not able to see in this import tab, you can add it to this particular window by clicking on the add child. So suppose if I had removed it, remove this particular child project from my import window. If I wanted to add it back, all I had to do is just go back to add child instead of creating it again, and then add the child project with existing overrides that my collaborator would have made.
So primarily, the add child option is available to users who are looking at, when we are sharing the when we are creating these child project and when we are sharing it with the relevant user. If this is not kept on the shared drive, and if you're sharing these projects via over email or something else, if that's happening, then this feature is primarily meant to add these projects back when they share the changed project, or when they have updated their changes and they share back the project. So we can add it using the add child option. So that's the primary usage of this add child option. Um, However, you may want to refrain from adding another child project from a different parent project unless a situation requires so. And also keep in mind that the hierarchy, the project hierarchy, should remain the same in both the cases. The project hierarchy should not change. In the parent project, the items which are present in the parent project should be available in the child project. Only then it would recognize the child project, right? So these are some of the key points that we have to keep in mind before we hit that add child option. Any other questions? All right. So we have recorded this session, and the recording would be available sometime later this week or early next week. And it would be available to all the users of Forecast Pro, as well as users or participants who are keen to watch the recording and were not able to come to the session today. We will be sharing that. In case you are keen to explore more areas within supply chain, and if you want to look at what Anamind has to offer uh, within the domain of supply chain, do reach out to me or do reach out to us, and we would be happy to showcase the capabilities and see how we can best collaborate. So that's about it from our side for today's session. Thank you so much for joining the session today. Have a good day.